Welcome, everyone, to another series of Entrepreneurial Mindset podcasts. This time, I wish I was wearing more colorful clothes today, but we have Melissa Lamson. Melissa is Executive Vice President, Venture Development, Innovation, and Strategy for Arizona Commerce Authority. So we're very lucky to have her today. We will not only talk about her, but we'll find out how she got into this role, what makes her excited about it, but also why Arizona is such a hot place to be these days, not because of the temperature, but just about startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem. So without further ado, Melissa, please tell us something about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, I like bright colors, number one. Yes, that's what I do today. My background is in consulting. So I was a leadership consultant and organizational development consultant for over 20 years. 10 of those years I was based in Europe, specifically Germany. I had the honor and the privilege to work on projects in over 40 countries. I worked with corporate clients of all sizes and across all industries. It was a really exciting time. And when I came back to the States, I worked with a lot of the fast-growing startups. I was based in the Bay Area. So like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn at the time, who were really on the trajectory. And then we decided to move to Arizona 13 years ago when my stepson decided to go to Arizona State. So that was pretty exciting.
Tell me something. You skipped a part.
I did.
When you were growing up.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. What is it that you wanted to do? This is a very exciting position you're in today. Was this something planned that you'll be in the entrepreneurial space, or what? Tell us about you growing up.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my father was a Spanish professor, and we lived in Indiana for part of the time, and then part of the time Massachusetts, because my mother wasn't a huge fan of India. But that's because it wasn't home, right? Massachusetts was home. So we traveled back and forth to Mexico a lot, and got to know the culture and the communities, and saw a lot of small businesses and a lot of people hustling to make money. So that's interesting that you say that, because maybe that had an influence, right, on me in terms of seeing that culture of entrepreneurship, which is often the case in small business. My father's just always been an incredibly creative thinker, and he loves to start projects. He started a baseball shop as like a side hustle. He now runs something called Amigos, which is a nonprofit that supports the Latino community in Indiana and around the Midwest. And so I might have gotten sort of the entrepreneurial genes from him, now that you say all that.
Yeah.
This is more like a therapy session. This is interesting.
No, it is. So what was your kids growing up? Somebody wants to be an astronaut or a scientist or an engineer. What was your dream?
I wanted to be a doctor, actually.
Ooh.
I was really interested in blood and bones. I thought it was fascinating how people's health and how the body worked. And it was funny because I never was particularly good in STEM, or maybe I was good, but I just never really applied myself or thought about it at a certain point. But I wish that I had pursued that. I still sort of regret that I didn't pursue the medical field.
Okay.
Yeah. But I always knew I wanted to work with culture and art, and I loved to understand how societies worked. So I was always sort of an anthropologist or sociologist by nature.
Very interesting. So coming to Arizona, what was the first thing that shocked you 13 years ago?
Yeah, well, you can't like see things. Everything was like tucked into the desert. And I was like, where's the restaurant? Where's the building? Where's, everything's sort of in these strip malls tucked away. Because at that time I hadn't really spent much time in downtown Phoenix. And it also wasn't a place you wanted to spend a lot of time in unless you went to a game or theater or something, which we do have an amazing landscape for sports and for culture. But there wasn't a city that you'd walk around and enjoy, really. And today that's changed dramatically.
Yeah, no, dramatically. So,
thanks to ASU, actually.
We'll talk about ASU in a second. But tell me, I know you have a very interesting vantage point, and in this role, a lot has changed over the last 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Just talking about the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the number of startups. Arizona never used to be. People never used to think of Arizona as a startup ecosystem. What happened? What changed?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there have been some very strong service providers or events or programs that have served entrepreneurs and startups for really the last 10, 12 years, right? Including ours at the ACA, particularly the Arizona Innovation Challenge. So there's been Phoenix Startup Week, there's been Venture Madness, there's been Startup AZ. But that was a really, really small community, right? But there was some need there, and mostly by transplants who saw that there was an interest in that. So what's changed is just the amount of people that have been moving here, particularly during the pandemic. So 200 people a day. The fact that there's it's a business-friendly environment. Obviously, it's a wonderful place to live from a weather perspective and all the infrastructure to enjoy. There's a lot of talent. I mean, the university, ASU alone, but certainly all of the universities that produce such incredibly great talent that is available to companies and particularly startups. So there's just a lot of new.
No, I absolutely agree. Where do you see the hubs coming up in Arizona? Because we look at Arizona, we don't look at Phoenix, we don't look at Scottsdale, even though Phoenix is a very large city. Within the state of Arizona, where do you see these hubs coming up that are pushing entrepreneurship? Tucson being one of them?
Tucson, yes. In terms of like the whole sort of community or that's fostering a lot of innovation and entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
Within Arizona.
Yeah. So basically a self-sustained that create their own ecosystem, including coffee shops like we know satellite cities are creating their own now. Avondale is doing it, Chandler is doing it, Scottsdale is doing it. But that's more around the Phoenix metro, greater metro.
Right.
But other than, which I know Tucson, and you were there recently, do you see other places like Flagstaff or some of the other states? And tell me more what's going on there.
Yes. So Flagstaff is becoming a really interesting hotspot for aerospace. They've also got some incredible, they've got a lot of small businesses, which also I would say sort of, you could consider them a startup, but a lot of it are consumer goods or different sort of inventions that are being built there. So there's some interesting things there. There's, as far as what the Arizona Commerce Authority is doing, we're bringing a lot of companies, obviously, to Arizona, but they're finding interesting space around the whole state, manufacturing areas or testing sites, because we have a lot of land, right? And there's also a lot of older buildings that can be repurposed for some of that. So there's, in different areas of the state, there's kind of a drone corridor, and then there's interesting things happening in Yuma. There's interesting things happening in Sierra Vista. And so there are hubs where stuff is happening. I think what's really unique is just like we're all, at least from my vantage point, I feel like all the towns and cities are really trying to work together to support not only economic development from outside, but also just homegrown startups and small businesses.
One of the things I talk about, one of the unique advantages of Arizona is this is a state where container and content are merging together. Content being the tech software, and container being the outside body. So for a mobile phone, the body will be the container, while the software will be the content. So traditional startup ecosystems have focused on one or the other. If you look at the Midwest, where cars are being manufactured, it was just purely driven. Detroit became the hub of container, while Silicon Valley ended up becoming the hub of content in a way. Here, what we're doing with drones and with Waymos of the world, we are combining them together, and in my opinion, that multiplies the value much more than either a container or a content. which is something which is very, very powerful. So you brought up ASU. How can ASU help even more? I know that ASU has been wind beneath the wings for this ecosystem. I know the ASU partnership is very, very important. I believe we are one of the most innovative. We are doing a lot, but what else can we do?
Yes. Oh, that's easy. I think two things. I think if we could really create a better system for commercialization, both for faculty projects and student projects, if we could get an incredibly well-oiled machine to get more out on the market and at least just visible to folks so that they know all the incredible innovation that's being developed here. And I know that's a combination of things, right? It's mindset, it's just accessibility, it's marketing, it's right. But I think the second thing is start a fund. I mean, ASU should have a fund that funds startups.
We have, but on a small scale, InvestU being one of them. But you're talking about a much larger scale.
I think so, yeah. And maybe, maybe obviously the criteria needs to be that people have some association with ASU, but does it have to be that way? I'm not sure.
No, you're absolutely right, because if there are 25,000 engineers coming out of it, every year we have 25,000 business students. The medical school coming up, all of that is a hub of innovation at this moment. If I were to take a step back and say, you have the goal. You talked about the $1 billion and
100 startups.
100 startups and how many companies coming in? 100 startups.
100 startups to relocate and 10 unicorns.
10 unicorns, 100 startups to relocate to Arizona, and a billion was what for?
To catalyze an investment.
Catalyze investments, $1 billion into that. Do you think so? If you were to look at the folks who are watching this and say and entice them to come to Arizona, what would be the top 3 things you will say to them?
Excellent talent, incredible business-friendly environment, so lots of incentives, tax breaks, and then also wonderful weather and incredible infrastructure to enjoy, great schools for your family, great life for your partnerships.
Melissa Lamson at ACA. Find her, search her, send her an email. No, this has been an amazing partnership. If you were to put a moniker on Arizona as we move forward into the next decade, what do you see the future of? If you were to just have a vision about what Arizona would look like, startup, small business, what do you think that looks like?
Well, what I love about Arizona is we're incredibly approachable, we're very accessible, we're very collaborative. I mean, you feel everyone who comes here and tries to start something or do something feels as though they're just like hugged and embraced into this community.
I agree with that.
So I really want to continue that. I want to continue to have this culture of openness, to embrace everyone. I want there to be prosperity for all, as our good friend Don says all the time. I want there to be openness to diverse perspectives. I just love that we have an openness.
Based upon all the efforts we're making, one day, if Arizona would look like not a Silicon Valley, not something in Asia, but a uniqueness of Arizona itself. Is it in terms of number of a largest city versus what else would define success? What would define? Let me rephrase that question. I know you defined what you want, the vision. You defined the vision. But in your mind, in the mind of Melissa Lamson, as EVP for all things startup and small business, how would you define success? Meaning you have arrived. Your billion, 110, that milestone will change. That'll move. I know that. I know for sure. But what would be the day when you say, we have arrived?
Well, this is going to sound a little planned. The first time I ever heard anyone talk about economies in a way that really made me understand was, before I got into this whole startup and small business arena, was Michael Crow. And he said there are 3 types of economies. They are fragile, resilient, and anti-fragile. And he said Silicon Valley, Seattle, Boston, New York, right, are anti-fragile. And he said, we're not even resilient yet. We're still fragile. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. We have to become resilient quickly. And then I want us to become anti-fragile. So I would say the vision is not to be like Seattle or Silicon Valley or New York or Boston, but in the uniqueness of Arizona, to be anti-fragile, to be a thriving economy, to be a place where all startups can come and feel like they could build what they want to build, and for investors to be excited to invest in that.
Yeah, I'll add one thing, and maybe you'll quote me later down the road. Adaptive. AI is causing us to be not a static organization. AI and the advent of AI, because I don't look at AI as a technology. I look at AI as a living, a breathing system within an organization. So anti-fragile, absolutely. Adaptive, so that we can change quickly with the change of the way of the market, which is what the move that AI is going to bring. No, this is exciting. I'm going to ask you one more question, which I'll insert it somewhere before. There's a lot of talk about TSMC. 60 billion, then 100 billion. How does that type of a move attract other companies, as well as create a sucking sound, and it brings other companies? And talk to me a little bit about how it impacts or strengthens the small business supply chain that feeds into these large companies that are coming in.
Yes, I mean, it's critical that we have this massive investment and other companies that come here to do the same, because there are so many suppliers and there's so much technology that's needed to sustain that type of innovation. And so the key to the success of that are startups and those who have the knowledge on this incredibly new innovative technology to support that. And eventually, not only will they be supporting that and supplying that to a TSMC, but that will spin out of a company like TSMC. And that creates this circular economy, which is what has made other startup economies so successful. It's absolutely critical. So,
one last question. I know you look at entrepreneurship slightly differently. You not only look at it as a tech startup, but also small businesses. Whenever somebody thinks about entrepreneurship, they only look at tech startups and investments and VCs and so on and so forth. I know you're making efforts to strengthen the small business ecosystem. Do you want to share some of that?
Yes. So I oversee the small business team at the Arizona Commerce Authority. We have a small business ombudsperson actually on the team. And it's our current governor's interest to do what we can to help small businesses thrive in Arizona. Over 90% of Arizona employees work for a small business. I mean, it's obviously something we can't forget. And startups are included in that to a certain extent, even tech startups. But those businesses, we need to create a strategy where they will continue to sustain. I mean, obviously, the project that you initiated with us will be a game changer in terms of some of those legacy businesses where they are at a point where do we sell or do our kids take over the business, and what does that look like? And not a lot of kids are wanting to take over these small businesses, so how do we move forward there? So I think it's just going to require us to really create a strategy. We're in the middle of that now, and one of the things we're going to do is create a small business coalition where we'll work with all of the small business providers to do that effectively.
Oh, that's fantastic. Folks, that's Melissa for you. She is literally at the tip of the spear at this moment for all the exciting thing that's happening in Arizona. Do you have any advice to ASU students who would be listening to this and saying, so how can I benefit from all the work that is being done within Arizona as part of Arizona Commerce Authority?
Yes. stay here. We will help you grow a business, buy a business, evolve a business, and we would love to have you continue to stay and contribute to the Arizona economy. And I just have to say one more thing, I'm a really good soldier. I have an incredible leader, Sandra Watson, who's our CEO and president of the Arizona Commerce Authority. And we could not do any of this without her vision. So.
No, I absolutely understand. So Sandra, if you're watching,
thank you.
This is fantastic. All the work that you're doing is fantastic. And this partnership and this podcast is all an effort to make this Arizona ecosystem, with the support of ASU and WP Carey, the next big thing. With that, thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
We will see you soon in the next podcast. Bye-bye.